For a long time, I thought my quiet nature was a flaw, something to be fixed, a gap in my character that needed to be filled with louder, more impressive things. My wife, Claire, she was the one who made me believe that. She was the sun, and I was just a planet in her orbit, grateful for the light and warmth. My name is Brian Jones, and this isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about reclamation. It's about how I agreed to tear down the walls of my own marriage to make my wife happy, only to watch her walk straight into the arms of the man who built my childhood prison. And it's about how I used the very blueprint of my mind to construct a consequence so perfect it felt like destiny. I need to take you back a bit. To understand the depth of this, you have to understand who I was and who Carter Thorne was. High school wasn't just awkward for me, it was a 10-year sentence. I had a stutter. Not a big one, but it came out when I was nervous or put on the spot. And Carter Thorne, he was a virtuoso of finding that spot. He wasn't just a bully, he was an artist of humiliation. He never punched me, not once. His weapon was language. He'd mimic my stutter in the middle of class presentations, turning my words into a cruel parody. He'd hold court in the cafeteria, and his laughter was a signal for everyone else to join in. He called me Burr Brian the Burr Brain, but he said it with a smile, so the teachers never saw it for what it was. To them, he was charismatic, a born leader. To me, he was my personal shadow, a constant reminder that I was defective. Claire was my salvation. I met her in college, where the past felt far away. She was brilliant, fiery, beautiful. She saw past my quietness, at first. She called it mysterious. She'd say, "I love how you really think before you speak, Brian. Most people just fill the air with noise." We built a life, a good one. I became a software architect, designing the invisible frameworks that power the digital world. It was a perfect career for someone who preferred to work in the background. Claire soared in high-stakes public relations, a world of perception and performance. She was the star, and I was her proud, quiet husband. But over the years, the script flipped. That mysterious quiet became boring silence. My contentment with our life was recast as a lack of ambition. I'd listen to her talk about her glamorous clients, her dinners, her network, and I'd see her looking at me waiting for a spark of envy or competition that never came. I was happy for her. I truly was. But my happiness began to feel, to her, like an indictment.
The open marriage conversation didn't come out of the blue. It was the climax of a long, slow-burning play. It was a Tuesday night. We'd just finished a lovely home-cooked meal, one I'd made. She was scrolling through her phone, a faint frown on her face. "Brian," she said, putting the phone down, "we need to talk about our energy." "Our energy?" I asked, wiping down a plate. "Yes, we're in a rut. We're like comfortable old slippers." "I like comfortable slippers," I said, smiling. She didn't smile back. "I don't. I feel like I'm dying inside. I need passion. I need novelty. I need to feel alive." She laid out her case with the precision of a lawyer. She'd done her research. She used phrases like evolving our relationship structure and deconstructing patriarchal monogamy. She talked about compersion, the idea that I should feel joy in her joy, even if that joy came from someone else. My heart was a drumbeat of pure panic. But what could I say? No, I want you to be miserable with me? So the quiet man, the accommodator, did what he did best. I agreed. I told myself it was a phase, that she would get it out of her system and realize that what we had was real. It was the greatest miscalculation of my life. She was on the apps within hours. It was a whirlwind. And then 3 weeks later, she came home from work, her cheeks flushed, her eyes shining. She looked victorious. "You are not going to believe this," she said, pouring a glass of wine without even looking at me. I matched with the most incredible man. The connection is just electric. And get this, you know him. It's Carter Thorne. The air left the room. Carter Thorne? The stutter I hadn't heard in years slipped out. Yes, can you believe it? Small world. He's a venture capitalist now. Incredibly successful. He remembers you. He said you were the smartest guy in school. The cruelty of that lie was so profound, it almost felt like a compliment. He'd spent a decade telling everyone I was an idiot. Now I was the smartest guy.
The unforgivable act. The one that crossed the line from personal betrayal to something far darker happened on a Saturday afternoon. My daughter, Lily, was living with us. She's 12, with a soul made of watercolors and poetry. She'd spent weeks on a project for school, a diorama of a scene from her favorite book, The Secret Garden. It was intricate, beautiful, filled with handmade flowers and tiny painted characters. She was so proud. Claire and Carter had just come back from a brunch date. They walked in arm in arm, laughing. Carter gave me that old, familiar smirk. "Brian, still keeping the home fires burning, I see." Then he saw Lily's diorama on the coffee table. "Well, look at this. What is it, kiddo?" Lily, beaming, started to explain. "It's from The Secret Garden. It's about a place that's locked away and forgotten, but then it becomes beautiful again when someone cares for it." Carter let out a short, sharp laugh. "Cute. You know, I just funded a tech startup that does 3D immersive environments. This is very quaint. Handmade." Claire stepped in, putting her hand on his arm. "Oh, honey, don't tease. It's sweet." She turned to Lily, and her tone was the kind of sweet that curdles milk. "Lily, it's important to have hobbies. Not everyone can be a real artist or a tech innovator. It's good to have realistic expectations." The light in Lily's eyes didn't just dim, it shattered. She looked from Claire's condescending smile to Carter's mocking face, then finally to me, her expression begging me to do something, to say something, to make it right. I stood there, silent, paralyzed, the quiet man. Lily snatched her diorama, ran upstairs, and slammed her door. In that moment, looking at my daughter's retreating back, something broke. But it wasn't a breakdown. It was a breakthrough. The system architect in me, the part that solves complex, layered problems, finally booted up. The problem was Carter Thorne. The problem was Claire. The problem was their combined toxic power to inflict pain. And I was going to design a solution. My hidden advantage wasn't a secret. It was just something Claire had never valued. While she was out building her empire of perception, I was in my home office building a real one.
For over a decade, I had been running a side project. I designed a proprietary trading algorithm. It wasn't flashy, it didn't involve shouting on a stock exchange floor. It was a thing of beauty, a silent digital predator that swam in the deep, dark pools of high-frequency trading, making microscopic, perfectly timed decisions thousands of times a second. It was my masterpiece. It had generated a fortune that sat in a series of offshore accounts, numbered and anonymous. To me, it was a complex, elegant equation. To Claire, it was Brian playing with his computer. My goal was no longer to win her back. That ship had sailed, torpedoed by her own hand. My new objective was simple, clean and absolute. To permanently sever their power. To remove them from our lives, not with a bang, but with the silent, irrevocable finality of a legal and financial guillotine. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was enforcing a consequence. The plan unfolded in 4 phases, each a layer of code in my new program. I became a ghost in Carter's machine. My skills as a software architect gave me a unique understanding of digital footprints. I didn't hack.
I followed the public dust he left behind: SEC filings, property records, business and corporation documents. Carter's firm, Apex Ventures, was a spectacular mirage. It was built on a foundation of debt and a single massive investment from a reclusive tech titan named Arthur Vance. Vance was the linchpin. Carter was just the smiling front man. I needed to understand that relationship. It took me weeks of late-night digging through labyrinthine corporate structures, but I found the connection. Apex Ventures was entirely dependent on a quarterly cash infusion from a Vance-controlled entity called Prometheus Holdings. This is where I called in my one and only favor. Years ago, I'd done a security audit for Arthur Vance's company as a personal favor to a former professor. I'd uncovered a vulnerability so critical it could have sunk his entire enterprise. He'd been profoundly grateful. He'd given me a private email and said, "You ever need a door opened, you send a message to this address." I sent a message. It was concise. It contained a summary of Carter's shaky financials and a few pointed questions about the due diligence performed by Prometheus Holdings. I didn't accuse, I just inquired. Arthur Vance was a shark. He didn't need me to tell him he was being played. He just needed to smell the blood in the water.
While I was poking the bear, I was also buying the cave. I discovered that the sleek, downtown high-rise that housed Apex Ventures, the physical symbol of Carter's success that he never stopped talking about, was owned by a real estate investment trust that was liquidating its non-core assets. The building was a small, insignificant line item on their balance sheet. Using one of my anonymous LLCs, Janus Holdings, I quietly acquired the property. The transaction was handled by bots and lawyers. Carter Thorne, the master of perception, didn't even notice that the ground beneath his expensive Italian loafers now belonged to me. This was the psychological layer. I began a subtle, long-term campaign of manipulation against Claire. I'd use her own language against her. I'd say things like, "Carter seems so performative, doesn't he? All that talk about his portfolio, I read that sector is looking volatile." I'd plant seeds of doubt, preying on her deepest fear, being tied to a loser. Then, I dangled the hook. I told her I'd received a modest inheritance from a distant relative. It wasn't the full truth, but it was a large, believable sum. And I suggested we use it as a down payment on the Glass House, a stunning, architecturally significant property she had coveted for years. It was her dream, a symbol of ultimate success. Her eyes lit up with a greed I'd never seen before. This was something real. This was my boring stability providing the foundation for her glamorous life. She agreed instantly. She was so blinded by the prize, she never questioned the fisherman. The trap was set. The meeting was convened in a sterile, professional conference room at my lawyer's firm. The air was cold, smelling of glass, metal, and money. Claire was there, dressed for the life she was about to claim. And beside her, of course, was Carter. He wore a custom-tailored suit and a look of smug proprietorship. He clapped me on the shoulder as he walked in. "Big day, Brian. Moving on up. Finally getting a place worthy of a woman like Claire." His voice was a weapon, just like old times. I simply nodded. A day of consequences. My lawyer, Miss Evans, a woman whose demeanor could freeze fire, began. "All right, let's proceed with the pre-closing for the property at 1247 Skyline Drive, known as the Glass House." We went through the preliminaries. Then, she slid a document across the table to Claire. "This is a standard financial disclosure confirming Brian's sole ownership of the funds and his ability to carry the mortgage." Claire scanned it, her smile faltering. Her eyes widened. She pointed a trembling finger at a number on the page. This is the modest inheritance?" The number was 8 figures. Carter leaned over, his smirk vanishing. "That's a typo. That has to be a typo." "It's not,"
A typo, I said, my voice calm, level. The stutter was gone. There was no nervousness left in me. But how? Claire whispered, her face pale. Miss Evans answered for me. The source of the funds is not relevant to this transaction. However, the next document is. She slid another file across the table. This is the title and lease agreement for the commercial property at 4800 Enterprise Boulevard. Carter froze. That was his address. He snatched the paper. His eyes darted over the words, from the property description to the owner of record, Janus Holdings. "What is this?" he snarled, his voice losing its polished tone. "What kind of game are you playing?" Janus Holdings is a wholly owned subsidiary of B. Jones Enterprises, I said, meeting his gaze. "I'm your landlord, Carter. Your lease is terminated, effective in 90 days. The space has been rented to a new tenant at triple your current rate." He shot up, his chair flying back and clattering against the wall. "You can't do this. I'll fight this. I'll tie you up in court for years, you pathetic little—" "And then there's the matter of your primary funding," I continued, as if he were a minor system error. I looked at Claire, whose expression was a car crash of confusion, horror, and dawning realization. Arthur Vance. He and I had a long conversation. He was very concerned to learn about the discrepancies between your investor reports and your actual cash flow. He has initiated a full audit and has frozen all capital transfers to Apex Ventures.
Carter didn't just deflate. He collapsed. He fell back into his chair, his hands gripping the table. "No, Brian, you don't understand. Without that capital, I'm bankrupt. I'll lose everything." "I understand perfectly," I said. "It's called leverage. You taught me that, remember? Leveraging someone's weakness against them." I then turned my full attention to Claire. This was the moment for Lily. "Claire," I began, my voice soft but absolute. "You wanted passion. You wanted novelty. You told our daughter that her beautiful handmade art was just a hobby. You looked at the man who dedicated his adolescence to making me feel worthless, and you saw your soulmate." I gestured to the documents on the table. All of this, is the product of the mind you found so boring, the patience you despised, the quiet consistency you mistook for a lack of ambition. I paused, letting the silence press down on her. "The purchase of the glass house is proceeding, but you will not be getting the keys. The documents Miss Evans has for you are not for a new home. They are for a divorce." I slid a single manila envelope toward her. It made a soft, final sound on the polished wood. "This is a settlement offer. You sign it, you walk away with nothing but your personal belongings and the car in your name. You contest it," I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper that carried more weight than any shout. "We will subpoena your texts, your emails, your dating app history. We will depose Carter and pick the carcass of his failed company clean in a public courtroom. We will make sure every one of your friends knows the exact cost of your authenticity." Claire was sobbing now, ugly, gasping sobs. "Brian, please, I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. It was him. He swept me off my feet." I looked at her, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No love, no hate, just a vast empty space where she used to be. "I'm not," I said quietly. "You didn't just break our vows.
You broke my daughter's heart. And for that, there is no apology sufficient. The offer is final. You have 48 hours. She signed. The alternative was social and financial annihilation. The woman who lived for perception could not survive that trial.
Carter Thorne's fall was swift and merciless. Arthur Vance didn't just pull his funding, he sued for fraud. The building was lost. The Apex Venture sign was taken down. I read a brief in the business section about the collapse of a local VC firm. It was 3 paragraphs. I framed it. Claire's Sun Kingdom evaporated. Her electric connection with Carter fizzled the moment his bank accounts did. Her social circle, built on success and status, had no room for a divorcee who had betrayed her husband for a con man. The last I heard, she'd moved to another state, trying to start over. The sun had set. But my world opened up. We moved into the glass house. It's all light and space. Lily's art studio has a panoramic view of the city. Her paintings, vibrant, confident, and beautiful, hang on every wall. The diorama she made sits on a shelf in my office, a permanent reminder of what we almost lost. The best moment came about a month after we moved in. We were in the garden, a real growing garden we'd planted together. Lily was sketching, and I was reading. She looked up, the sun catching her hair. "Dad," she said. "Yes, sweetie." "You remember that day with Claire and Carter and my diorama?" "Of course I do," I said, my heart tightening. She smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile. "I was thinking about the book, The Secret Garden. It was locked away and everyone forgot about it. But then someone found the key." She looked at me, her eyes clear and bright. "You found the key, didn't you?" Tears welled in my eyes. "We found it together, Lily."
That was the true victory. Not the money, not the house, not their downfall. It was the restoration of my daughter's world. It was showing her that quiet strength is a superpower, that kindness can coexist with ferocity, and that the people who are underestimated are often the ones building the foundations the loud ones stand on. So now I sit here in the quiet. The silence is no longer empty. It's full. It's the sound of the wind chimes on the porch, the scratch of Lily's pencil, the hum of my servers in the basement, the silent, relentless engine of our security and our peace. They thought I was just the quiet husband, the boring tech guy. They never saw the architect. They never understood that I don't just build systems, I design realities. And when their reality was built on a lie, I simply decommissioned it. And me, I'm finally, truly living.